Welcome to Podkey Fantasy Football, where late-round value and draft logic get pressure tested. A lot of fantasy advice sounds confident right up until you ask what has to be true for it to work. This week is really about that question, which sleepers are real, when rushing quarterbacks are still mispriced, and how injury optimism usually gets overconfident too early. Start with Jonathan Brooks, because the bullish case is easy to see. RB42 pricing is cheap if training camp confirms real volume, and the college profile was strong enough to sell upside in both rushing and receiving. The problem is the downside is not cosmetic. 2 ACLs matter, and repeat ACL history is one of the clearest reasons to separate redraft from dynasty. In redraft, you can chase a discounted path to a high-end RB3. In dynasty, any early sign that the explosiveness is lagging probably raises sell questions fast. Keith Mitchell and Marshawn Lloyd fit a different bucket. These are role-fragile backs where the bet is less about certainty and more about what happens if a committee tilts their way. Mitchell gets help from the possibility of a rotation that produces flex weeks, and Lloyd has the college breakaway and elusive numbers that make him more than a pure backup if Josh Jacobs misses time. Nick Singleton is interesting because the thesis is not subtle. If the incumbents stumble, he has the frame and skill set to jump from backup status into actual early season volume. That's a more actionable bet than vague talent hype, but it still depends on a depth chart changing, not just on talent existing. At wide receiver, Romeo Doubs has one of the cleaner analytical cases. If the route share really moves from the low 70s into the 80s in a more pass-friendly environment, then his first down and route win metrics say this isn't just empty optimism. The market would basically be pricing him like a secondary option while the usage points to more. Christian Watson is a different kind of upside swing. The case depends on 2 medical ideas holding up. The biomechanical fix matters, and post-ACL performance can improve meaningfully in year 2 after return. That's plausible, and his per-route production supports the ceiling, but he also remains a profile where availability is part of the projection, not something you can assume away. Jordan Tyson and Parker Washington are good examples of where target-based arguments matter. Tyson being called the safest rookie wideout only holds if that 100 to 110 target projection is realistic. Washington's late 2024 target share was huge, but small sample late season volume can be noisy. The upside is real. The certainty is not. Quarterback strategy keeps getting pushed toward patience for one big reason. The pool got deeper once rushing production became more common and more predictable. Since 2019, more quarterbacks have given you stable rushing points, and that changes everything. If 12 or more viable options can give weekly upside in a normal league, paying an early premium gets harder to justify unless you're buying a truly unique edge. The ADP data backs that up. Once the market started pricing rushing better, quarterback ADP became more correlated with actual postseason scoring. That doesn't mean the market is perfect. It means the obvious mistakes are less obvious now. Malik Willis is the cleanest test case for whether bias still exists. The rushing output across his starts and the big play rate create a path to fantasy relevance that pocket passers drafted near him usually don't have. For him to finish top 12, though, you still need enough passing volume and passing competence to keep him on the field. That's the key distinction. Rushing gives you ceiling and insulation. It doesn't erase benching risk, bad offenses, or shaky passing efficiency. So the argument that mobile quarterbacks are still systematically undervalued is directionally convincing, but it works best when the player also has a credible path to starting stability. In single QB redraft, that still points toward waiting unless one of the true difference makers falls into a justifiable range. In 2 QB superflex or certain tournament builds, the math changes because replacement value at quarterback dries up much faster. Injury news gets flattened into one question: will he be ready for week 1? That's useful, but it is not the same as asking whether he'll be himself in September. For ACL and meniscus recoveries, 9 months can be enough for return. It often is not enough for full rushing efficiency, workload confidence, or pre-injury explosiveness. For fantasy, those next 4 to 6 weeks after return can matter more than the activation date. That's why someone like Brooks, or any player coming off a mid or late season injury, needs two projections. One for availability, one for effectiveness. Managers usually overprice the first and underprice the second. Achilles recoveries are similar. Players may get back surprisingly quickly now, but snap counts and burst often trail behind. A healthy, active player can still be a fantasy underperformer if the team manages usage or the explosiveness hasn't fully returned. Second, clean-up surgeries after ACL or meniscus repair are uncommon, which is important because fear can outrun the actual base rates. But uncommon is not impossible, and repeat injury history still belongs in dynasty risk assessment more than in one-year panic. The strongest draft principle here is replacement value over roster quotas. Taking a second running back by round 3 just because a rule told you to is how you pass on better points relative to replacement at another position. The same logic is why rigid identities like 0RB or Hero RB can become traps. Those structures can work, but only if the room hands you the right prices. If you commit before the draft adapts, you're the one who stops adapting. Best ball sharpens this. You need enough floor to avoid zeros because there are no waivers, but the middle and late rounds still need ceiling. That's where tournament-winning outcomes usually come from. Redraft gives you more forgiveness. You can recover from an early tight end miss or a shaky quarterback pick with waivers and trades, which is one reason paying a premium at those spots needs a clearer edge than people sometimes admit. Bye weeks still barely matter on draft day. ADP matters mostly as a market map, not a commandment. Draft your guys is fine, as long as you know when you're paying a full round above market and why. The receiver metrics that travel best are still the ones tied to earning and using routes well. Yards per route run, target per route win rate, and first downs per route run. Those numbers help you tell apart empty volume from scalable efficiency. Explosive play rate matters too, especially when a player is being sold as a field-tilting threat. High target totals can hide limited downfield impact, and that gap matters when you're betting on ceiling weeks instead of WR4 survival. Team changes can be real fantasy catalysts, but this is where hype gets ahead of certainty fastest. Coordinator moves, offensive line upgrades, and roster reshuffles can create better environments for quarterbacks and skill players. They can also take longer than expected to click or redistribute volume in ways the market underestimates. So if you're buying someone because of a coach change or a big trade, make sure the path is specific. More neutral passing, better protection, or a cleaner route share projection are better arguments than just saying the offense will be better. At tight end, paying up only makes sense when you're buying real target insulation or a clear weekly ceiling. That's why the true top tier matters so much more than the exact order inside it. If you miss that tier, late-round tight end can be a rational response, especially in best ball, where an extra stab at touchdowns and usable weeks lowers your zero risk. Exposure management matters everywhere else too. Summer ADP can swing by rounds once camp news hits, so the sharp move is not rewriting your whole board every time Twitter panics. Keep the rankings stable, then change how often you draft the player based on price. One non-fantasy note from the source material is genuinely worth separating out. People are using AI tools to understand scans, pathology reports, and treatment language between doctor visits. That can help with clarity and with asking better questions, but it doesn't remove the trade-offs around screening, overdiagnosis, prevention, and treatment. More detection is not automatically more health, even when early detection sounds obviously good. The useful lesson is the decision framework, not blind trust. Base rates, survival odds, costs of overtreatment, and personal risk tolerance all matter. AI can organize that conversation. It should not replace it. That's the board right now. Chase upside, but make every upside case survive contact with role, recovery, and price. Thanks for listening to Podkey Fantasy Football. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.